In a lot of Western food cultures, if you bite into a piece of food and it bounces back against your teeth, you might actually send it back to the chef.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. A rubbery or a bouncy texture is usually seen as a big mistake. But in Taiwan, that exact bouncy texture isn't just accepted, it is, well, it's an absolute culinary obsession. So, welcome to the Taste China Learn English.
Yes. Welcome, everyone.
Today, we are taking a journey into a world where how a food feels in your mouth is just as important as how it tastes.
And we are heading straight into the vibrant, energetic world of Taiwan's night markets. And since we really want to make this deep dive useful for you, for anyone out there learning English, we are going to keep our pace nice and relaxed today.
Exactly. We are taking our time.
Right, taking our time and keeping our vocabulary very clear because we are combining food science, culture, and language all into one fun conversation.
It really is the best way to learn, I think. We aren't just going to give you words to describe food. We are going to look at the mechanics behind those words. Why does meat become soft?
Or how does a starch become sticky?
Right. So by the end of this, you will have the perfect English vocabulary to describe complex flavors and textures. And you will understand the actual science of why they happen.
So let's start with a dish that perfectly captures this idea. The idea of transforming a tough ingredient into something really magical. We are talking about Taiwan's famous beef noodle soup.
Oh, it is incredible.
It is. Many people actually consider it the national dish. It's this steaming, deeply colored broth just filled with noodles and these really thick cuts of beef.
And the word that always comes up when people talk about the beef in this soup is tender. But I want to dig into what that actually means for a second, because tender doesn't just mean soft, right?
Right.
I mean, mashed potatoes are soft, but we would never call them tender.
That is a really great distinction to make. Tender specifically describes something that naturally has structure, so like a piece of meat, but it has been prepared so that it is completely effortless to bite through.
It just yields to your teeth.
Exactly, it gives way. And the way chefs achieve this in beef noodle soup is through hours and hours of slow braising.
Okay, so what is physically happening to the meat during all those hours in the pot?
Well, it really comes down to connective tissue. Beef shank, which is often used in this soup, is a very tough muscle. It is full of this strong protein called collagen.
Right.
And if you cooked it quickly in a frying pan, it would be, well, it would be impossible to chew. But when you cook it very slowly at a very low temperature in a liquid, that tough collagen actually breaks down. It physically transforms into gelatin.
Ah, okay. So it is a chemical change.
Yeah.
The stuff that makes the meat tough literally melts into something silky.
That's it, exactly. The gelatin coats the muscle fibers. So when you put that beef in your mouth, it feels rich and very smooth. It practically just, falls apart without you needing to work for it.
Think about spreading warm butter on hot toast.
Oh, that's a good image.
Yeah, the butter doesn't fight back at all. It just melts into the structure of the bread. That is what tender beef does in your mouth.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a perfect way to picture it. But, the meat is really only half the story here. The liquid it cooks in the broth is just as important.
Oh, absolutely. And people often describe this broth as being incredibly savory and complex. So let's break those two concepts down for our listeners.
Sure. So savory is a fundamental taste category. It is essentially the opposite of sweet. It covers foods that are salty or meaty or rich.
So, like a ripe strawberry is sweet, but roasted mushrooms, soy sauce, and beef broth, those are all highly savory.
Exactly.
Right. But what about that other word, complex? Because sometimes I see a recipe with, I don't know, 20 different ingredients, and people will call it a complex dish. Does complexity just mean throwing a lot of things into a pot?
Not at all, actually. A complex flavor isn't just a really long list of ingredients. It is about how those ingredients interact and change each other over time.
Oh,
Yeah. In a great beef noodle soup, the chef uses things like star anise, ginger, garlic, fermented bean paste, and dark soy sauce. Now, if you tasted any of those things alone, the flavor would be very loud and very one-dimensional.
like eating a raw piece of ginger.
Yes.
It's intense, but it's simple.
Right. But when you simmer them together for 8 hours, they start to merge. The sharp notes of the ginger soften up, the star anise adds a background warmth, and the marrow from the beef bones, well, that adds a heavy richness.
They blend.
Yes, they form a completely new, unified flavor. When you take a spoonful of a complex broth, your brain can't easily identify just one thing. The flavor hits your tongue in waves. First, salty, then maybe a little spicy, and then deeply rich.
So it's kind of like a choir.
A choir.
Yeah. One person singing is a simple sound, but 50 people singing different harmonies together, that creates a complex sound. You don't really hear the individual voices anymore. You hear the chord.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. I love that. And resting right inside that complex, savory broth are the noodles. Traditional shops actually use hand-pulled noodles.
Which are amazing to watch them make.
Oh, truly. The chef folds and stretches the dough repeatedly by hand. And this physical stretching lines up the gluten proteins in the wheat.
Which brings us right back to that idea of texture. Because of how they are stretched, these noodles are completely different from dry pasta out of a box. They are bouncy.
Yes, bouncy. They have an active texture. They offer this pleasant resistance when you bite into them, and then they snap.
And that bounce is actually the perfect bridge to our next stop, because Taiwanese food culture celebrates that bouncy resistance more than almost anyone else in the world.
They really do.
Let's move away from the hot, savory soup for a minute and talk about a drink that has basically taken over the world. Bubble tea or boba.
Oh, yes. If you are walking around a night market in Taiwan, especially on a very humid afternoon, you will see people carrying these plastic cups everywhere.
Everywhere.
It is cold milk tea with dark, round tapioca pearls sitting right at the bottom.
The tea itself is just the ultimate refreshing drink. And refreshing is a very specific word, right? I mean, we don't call a hot bowl of soup refreshing.
We don't know, because refreshing actually describes a physiological response. A refreshing food or drink physically changes how your body feels in a harsh environment.
Which makes sense for Taiwan.
Exactly. Taiwan can be incredibly hot and very humid. The air feels heavy, so when you drink an ice-cold milk tea, it cools your core temperature down, it restores your energy, and kind of washes away the feeling of heat.
So watermelon is refreshing.
Yes.
A cold glass of lemonade is refreshing.
Exactly. But, the real star of the drink is the pearls. And this is where we have to talk about the Taiwanese concept of Q. From what I understand, Q is a texture that sits somewhere between soft and hard.
Right. But how do we describe Q using our English vocabulary?
The closest English words we really have for the Q texture are chewy and springy.
Now, wait a second. Earlier, we said that if a piece of beef is chewy, it's a terrible thing.
Yes, we did.
It means the cook failed, the collagen didn't break down, and the meat is tough. So why is chewy a bad word for beef, but a great word for boba?
It is all about the mechanism of the chew. Tough meat is fibrous. Your teeth have to tear through dry, tight strings of muscle, and that is just exhausting for your jaw.
It is.
But the chewiness of a tapioca pearl comes from starch, not muscle fiber.
Tapioca is made from the cassava root, right?
Yes, it is. And when tapioca starch is cooked, it becomes very dense and elastic. It doesn't just fall apart like a mashed potato. Instead, it acts like a tiny trampoline for your teeth.
A tiny trampoline. I like that.
When you bite into a boba pearl, it absorbs the pressure of your bite and then it pushes back. It is springy.
So it's a playful texture. kind of like a gummy bear candy.
Yes, exactly like that.
A gummy candy gives your jaw a little bit of a workout, but it's a satisfying elastic resistance. It's not a struggle like the tough beef.
And that is the real magic of Q. It is a texture that demands your attention. You can't just swallow a boba pearl whole. You have to interact with it. It turns drinking a beverage into a physical activity.
I love how intentional that is. Taiwanese cuisine isn't just feeding you, it's entertaining your mouth.
It really is.
But Q isn't the only unique texture you will find in the night market. Let's talk about something that sits right on the borderline between a liquid and a solid.
Ah, you must be thinking of the oyster omelet. It is easily one of the most famous street foods in Taipei.
I am indeed. If someone listening has never seen a Taiwanese oyster omelet, they might imagine, a neat folded yellow egg dish from a French diner.
Right, a classic omelet.
But this is completely different. The cook throws fresh briny oysters onto a super hot iron griddle, cracks some eggs over them, and then pours over this liquid mixture made from sweet potato starch.
And that starch completely changes the game. It creates a texture we call gooey.
Gooey is such a great descriptive word. It almost sounds like what it is. Gooey.
It really does. Gooey describes something that is soft, thick, and sticky. It flows, but it flows very slowly.
Okay, so think of melted cheese stretching off a slice of hot pizza.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Or warm caramel dripping slowly over an apple. Those things are gooey.
But how does sweet potato starch turn a regular egg into something gooey?
It is a scientific process called starch gelatinization. When the raw starch hits the hot oil and water on the griddle, these tiny starch granules swell up like water balloons until they finally burst.
Wow.
And when they burst, they release these long chains of carbohydrates that tangle together into a sticky web.
Ah, so instead of the egg cooking into a firm, dry sponge, that starch web traps all the moisture inside.
Precisely. It binds the egg and all the juices from the oysters into this soft, stretchy, gooey blanket. It creates a really striking contrast.
Because of the edges. Right.
Exactly. You have the crispy, fried edges of the omelet where the heat was highest, and then the soft, gooey center that just melts over the oysters.
Texture contrast again. The crispy edge fighting the gooey center. It's fascinating how much engineering goes into just a simple street snack.
It really is incredible. But, as we walk further down into the market, we really have to address something that isn't about texture at all.
Oh.
It is about a very specific, very aggressive scent.
Oh, I know exactly what you were talking about.
Okay.
You can usually smell it, 3 streets away before you even see the stall?
Easily.
The famous stinky tofu.
It is completely unavoidable in a Taiwanese night market. And the English vocabulary word we use to describe a smell this powerful is pungent.
Pungent. This means a smell that is sharp, strong, and highly penetrating. It physically hits the inside of your nose.
Yes.
Ammonia is pungent. Strong blue cheese is pungent. And stinky tofu is intensely pungent.
And the smell comes from the fermentation process. The tofu is soaked in a brine, which is often made from fermented milk, vegetables, and meat, and it's left to sit for months. It is essentially a controlled decay.
Which naturally makes stinky tofu what we call an acquired taste. Meaning, if you didn't grow up eating it, your first reaction is probably going to be pure panic.
Oh, definitely.
But if you keep trying it, you acquire or you learn to love it.
Black coffee, dark chocolate, and strong beer are all classic examples of acquired tastes. But stinky tofu is really the ultimate test.
I have a theory about this. Why do humans do this to themselves?
What do you mean?
Why do we intentionally eat foods with pungent smells if our biological instinct is to just run away?
Well, it is a deeply biological question. Our noses evolved to protect us. A pungent, decaying smell usually tells the brain, stop, this food is rotten, it will make you sick.
Right. So taking a bite of stinky tofu is essentially ignoring millions of years of evolutionary warnings.
You are absolutely fighting your own instincts. But here is the trick. When you put the properly fried stinky tofu in your mouth, your taste buds discover something incredible.
Flavor.
Yes. The fermentation has broken down the proteins in the tofu into amino acids. And those amino acids create a massive burst of savory, complex flavor.
So the outside is perfectly crispy from the fryer, the inside is soft and warm, and it tastes rich and savory, not rotten at all.
Exactly. The reward is huge. The brain experiences this thrilling shock. You survive the scary, pungent smell, and then you are rewarded with an incredible taste.
We do love that, don't we?
Humans love that biological thrill. It is the exact same reason we enjoy riding roller coasters or watching scary movies. We know we are actually safe, so we can just enjoy the adrenaline of the fake threat.
So stinky tofu is basically culinary skydiving.
I love that. Yes.
You get the rush of fear from the pungent smell, followed by the soft, savory landing.
That is an excellent way to view an acquired taste. It is a journey from fear to appreciation.
We have covered so much ground today, and we've built a really strong vocabulary list along the way for our learners. But instead of just repeating the words, let's look at the story they tell about this food culture.
I completely agree. The words we explored today really map out the philosophy of Taiwanese street food.
We started with the science of breaking things down, taking a tough piece of meat and slow cooking the collagen until it melts, giving us a tender texture that just effortlessly yields to the bite.
And then we saw how simple ingredients, when they are simmered together over time, chemically bond to create a complex and savory broth. A flavor profile that is really rich and layered, rather than just sweet or basic.
Then we flipped the script entirely. Instead of wanting food to be soft and yielding, we explored the Taiwanese love for Q. We learned how tapioca starch creates a springy and chewy texture.
A playful resistance that feels like a trampoline for your teeth, making the refreshing cold milk tea a very active experience.
We moved on to the griddle, where high heat transforms sweet potato starch into a sticky, stretchy web. This gives the oyster omelet its signature gooey consistency, which is a perfect contrast to the crispy fried edges.
And finally, we challenged our own biology.
Yeah.
We faced the strong, sharp, pungent aroma of fermented stinky tofu, proving that sometimes, the most intimidating smells hide the most delicious rewards. We conquered the ultimate acquired taste.
By understanding these words, tender, savory, complex, chewy, refreshing, gooey, pungent, and acquired taste, you don't just know how to order food now.
No, you understand the chemistry and the culture behind why the food is prepared that way in the first place.
You can explain to anyone exactly how a meal functions, not just what is sitting on the plate.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to pose a little question to you, our listener, to think about long after this conversation ends. We talked heavily about stinky tofu today, but think about the culinary traditions in your own country or even your specific hometown. What is your local acquired taste?
Oh, that is such a great question to leave on.
What is that one dish that smells incredibly pungent or looks really strange to an outsider, but is a deeply loved, complex masterpiece to the locals? Understanding your own culture's acquired taste is usually the first step to appreciating someone else's.
It reminds us that every culture has its own culinary skydiving. Food really is the most accessible way to understand how other people experience the world. So keep exploring those contrasting textures, keep chasing those complex flavors, and most importantly, keep learning. See you at the next night market. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel